Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Somebody wrote in and said, my 3-year-old is having bouts of the sillies. I love that expression. He will just sit and laugh or spin and laugh until he falls down. At first we thought it was cute, but now I'm concerned. Is this just a different version of happiness, and should we be worried?
Okay, so first of all, I never want you to be worried, but that being worried doesn't necessarily help in any way. So let's just analyze the situation and figure out if anything has to change in order to take care of this problem. So, sometimes, and you have to observe this over a period of time and do some experimentation here, which I know it's an unusual way to proceed, but unfortunately that's what it is with autism. It is a puzzle. We often don't know what behaviors are. We can only make assumptions based on things we've seen. And one of the things, when you see a child who's just giggling and being a little silly, I would want to rule out the possibility of this being yeast or yeast die-off. That is, so many parents would come to me, Shannon, and say, my child he looks like he's drunk. Like he's running around and
Jem was the drunk elf.
There you go.
Yeah.
And when they're 2 years old or 3 years old and they're little and cute and, you think, oh, it's just a cute little thing they're doing. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, the child is intoxicated with high levels of toxins in their body, and you can do something about that and change it. And by the way, when they are drunk like that, they're not really learning from their environment. So what I suggest you do is actually go see a nutritionist and or a doctor who has been trained in, functional medicine. This is called functional medicine. And they will do some tests. They'll do a urine test, and they will identify if your child has high levels of yeast. And this could have come about from a variety of things. Most of our food, unfortunately, in this country will promote this. But that's what you need to find out. And if you do find out that, oh yeah, your child does have actually candida, then it becomes very important to treat it, which will involve a diet as well as possibly medications that are antifungal medications. And you might even actually start, after you start the diets and the antifungals, you might still see some of this behavior, which is called the die-off phase, which is, this is the point where you're actually killing the yeast, but your child will be silly and giggly and so on and so forth until they're not. Yeah. And once they're not, it's a whole different thing. And it's like, whoa, your child has woken up now and is just completely aware, whereas before they weren't really. So that's the only thing that I can think of is that you want to just rule out. And if you rule that out and know your child's not having high levels of yeast, then I would be fine. And again, one of the things that I always tell parents, Shannon, is, with typically developing kids, if they're giggly and so on, you can interrupt it with something else and they don't melt down.
Right.
If you can't interrupt your child, and if they melt down when you try to interrupt their giggliness, there's something going on there.
There we go. We had to do a yeast, and there are several yeast protocols out there. They're all sort of different because every person is different. We did a yeast protocol. And you get used to your child, especially if you only have the one child and you get used to whatever.
You forget,
And my child, we referred to him as busy pants because he was constantly in motion. He never sat still for anything. You couldn't get him to sit in a chair to do anything. We would have to strap him into the car seat or strap him into the high chair because he was busy pants. And we called him the drunk elf, where he would run into walls and he would turn around and laugh and then fall down. And if you smelled his head smelled like a fresh loaf of bread, or his feet smelled like that, and his breath smelled like brandy.
Yeah,
like
amazing.
He'd been drinking,
Unbelievable.
Right? And so then we started a yeast protocol. And it got worse, and nobody had told me about die-off. And I went, this isn't working, and I almost stopped because I went this,
Yeah.
and then and it was a midwife who said, I said, we're doing this yeast thing, and he's worse. And she said, oh, no, did I explain die-off to you?
Yeah.
And she said, no, don't stop. It means you've got the right
You're
thing.
on the right path.
And then I remember the day, it was like 45 days in. That's how long it took, you guys. And 45 days in, I remember waking up, and the house was quiet. And I couldn't, because he even moved in his sleep. He moved his feet in his sleep. And the house was completely quiet. And I was panicked because I thought we had so many locks on the door because he was also a flight risk. And I thought he'd gotten out of the house. That's how quiet the house was. I went out, and he was sitting at the coffee table, and he was putting together Duplos. And we'd had the Duplos, he'd never done it before. And he was sitting there, and he was putting them together. And when I walked up and I said, hey, bud, what are you doing? And he looked right up at me, and I went,
Oh,
what's going on? Like, it felt eerie because my child hadn't made eye contact like that.
Yeah.
And he was sitting and playing with a toy.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen that before.
I love that.
Amazing, like life-changing, right?
It's so interesting.
Okay.
If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here. Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time on autismnetwork.com. We hope to see you there.